The stars stretched endlessly, cold and silent. But on the mining colony of Arden IV, silence was a fragile illusion. Life here was harsh, the surface scarred with jagged rocks and deep canyons. The colony's towers rose like gray fingers from the red soil, packed with workers who toiled from dawn to dusk. For most, life was a matter of survival. Yet beyond the surface, in the dark of space, an even greater danger watched over them: the Zarathi Armada. The Zarathi were a race of warriors, feared across 10 star systems. They were large, imposing, and disciplined to the point of cruelty. Their fleet swept across planets, leaving no room for resistance. Entire worlds had fallen without a fight. Tributes, resources, and obedience were demanded, and those who refused vanished. Their fates whispered in fear. The colonists of Arden IV lived under this shadow. Alara Vance, a young Terran engineer, adjusted the settings on a mining extractor. Her hands were steady, trained by years of routine, but her mind wandered to the recent reports. Another transport ship had been destroyed near the outer belt. Civilians, unarmed. It had been a warning, and everyone on Arden IV had felt the tension. "Alara, hurry up. The shift ends in 5 minutes," called Milo, a burly worker with a thick voice and a kind heart. He glanced at her nervously, sensing her distraction. I know, Alara replied, tightening the last bolts. "I just keep thinking about what's out there. About them." Milo nodded silently. Few dared to speak openly about the Zarathi. Fear was woven into every word. Every glance at the sky was a reminder that the Armada could appear without warning, their black warships blotting out stars as they executed their judgment. Alara returned to her quarters after the shift, her mind restless. The communications console beeped faintly, a flicker of an incoming transmission. She frowned. Communications were strictly monitored. Unauthorized signals were dangerous. But curiosity and duty pushed her fingers across the controls. A tiny scrambled message appeared. It was fragmented but clear enough to understand. "Help. Zarathi patrol. Approaching. Colony in danger." Alara's heart raced. She had heard distress signals before but never received one directly. She knew what it meant. Someone was asking for help, and if the Zarathi found them first. She sat down and typed quickly, sending an encrypted request to the Terran Federation, hoping the humans would respond. The Terrans were known for their battleships, for their courage, for their will to stand against oppression. Stories from other systems spoke of Terran ships arriving in impossible situations, turning tides and rescuing the desperate. The thought that help could come gave her a small spark of hope. Far away, in a sector known only to the military maps of Terran space, the battleship Ardent sailed silently. Its sleek metallic hull glinted under distant starlight. A vessel designed for both power and strategy, it carried weapons beyond imagination, yet relied as much on brains as on firepower. Captain Jonas Creel stood on the command deck, hands behind his back, eyes fixed on the stars. He was a man of calm authority, a leader who inspired courage simply by his presence. Beside him, Lieutenant Marate ran simulations of the surrounding systems. "Captain," Mara said, her voice steady but alert. "Sensors detect a distress signal from the Arden sector. It's weak, heavily scrambled, but unmistakable. Terran. Civilians are in danger. Likely a Zarathi patrol nearby." Creel's face hardened. "Set a course for Arden IV. Engage stealth protocols. We arrive without alerting them. I want the first move in our hands, not theirs." The crew of the Ardent moved with precision, each member knowing the stakes. Unlike the Zarathi, who ruled through fear and overwhelming force, Terrans relied on strategy, adaptability, and the will of their people. They believed that courage, intelligence, and ingenuity could change the course of any battle. Back on Arden IV, life continued with tense normalcy. Mining vehicles rumbled across the surface while children played under the watchful eyes of adults. No one could ignore the distant hum of the patrol ships above. The Zarathi fleet glided through space, massive warships casting shadows over the colony. On the observation deck, Alara watched them. Their hulls were black as night, and their engines left trails of eerie green light. She had studied these ships in old records. Each vessel was a fortress, and each was crewed by warriors, trained to dominate. Ordinary humans did not stand a chance, or so it seemed. Then a ripple of movement caught her eye. One of the smaller patrol scouts veered slightly off course. Her heart jumped. She didn't know why, but something about the maneuver felt unusual. Could it be a scout making a mistake, or could it be something else? The colony's alarm sounded suddenly, a harsh grinding noise that shook windows and rattled metal walls. A patrol drone had detected unauthorized activity. Alara's distress signal. Panic spread. Families hurried to shelters. Workers abandoned their machinery. Fear filled the air like a tangible cloud. Alara acted fast. "Milo, we need to get to the communication hub," she shouted. "If we don't maintain contact, we're finished." Milo grabbed her arm, his face pale. "Do you think the Terrans will come?" "They have to," she said firmly. "They never ignore calls for help. Trust me, Milo. We just have to hold on until they arrive." Outside, the patrol ship moved. Closer. A beam of light scanned the surface, detecting motion and heat signatures. Soldiers in black armor descended, methodical and merciless. The colonists froze, caught between hope and terror. Suddenly, a shimmer in space appeared, faint, almost invisible. The Ardent had jumped into the system, its presence hidden by advanced stealth technology. For a moment, no one on the ground or in the patrol realized that the humans had arrived. Captain Creel stood on the command deck watching through sensors. Mara, position the Ardent behind the asteroid cluster near the colony. We'll use the terrain. Let them think they have the upper hand. Fear is their weapon. We'll turn it against them. Mara nodded, her fingers flying over the controls. Engaging stealth positioning, they won't see us coming. Back on the colony, Alara guided civilians into shelters while keeping an eye on the patrol. She whispered prayers to herself, wishing for safety, for courage, for an answer. Then a faint pulse appeared on the scanner, strange interference in the patrol's signals. "Captain?" Mara's voice came over encrypted comms, calm but sharp. "You may want to see this." Creel leaned forward. "What is it, EO?" "Patrol sensors are being jammed. They're about to be blind. It's time." Alara felt a sudden shiver of hope. Something had changed. She couldn't see it, but she could sense it. The tide might be turning. The Ardent moved like a shadow, silent and precise. Its weapons, though powerful, remained hidden for now. The humans would not strike blindly. They would strike smart. And when they did, the Zarathi would learn that some forces were not to be underestimated. On the surface, the patrol's soldiers continued their search, unaware of the giant hidden above them. Their confidence was total. Their belief in their invincibility absolute. They did not know that the first sign of Terran intervention had arrived. Alara tightened her grip on the controls, Milo at her side. "Hold on," she whispered. "Help is here. Terrans are here." And in the darkness of space, the Ardent prepared to reveal itself, a single Terran battleship ready to challenge the mightiest fleet the galaxy had ever known. For the first time in years, the people of Arden IV dared to hope. The stars above Arden IV glittered cold and distant, but the sky was no longer empty. Among the familiar patrol ships of the Zarathi Armada, a new presence glided silently, unseen. The Terran battleship Ardent, cloaked by advanced stealth technology, floated like a predator waiting to strike. Its sensors scanned the region with precision, noting the position of every Zarathi vessel. Captain Jonas Creel stood on the bridge, arms crossed behind his back, calm and focused. His crew moved with quiet efficiency, each action synchronized, as though rehearsed for 1,000 battles. Despite the fearsome reputation of the Zarathi, Creel's confidence never wavered. "Lieutenant Mara," he said, his voice firm. "What's their current patrol pattern?" Mara's fingers danced over the console. "They're predictable, sir. Their scouts follow a set route around the colony. They rely on sensors and intimidation rather than strategy. If we use the asteroid fields, we can force them into our line of fire without revealing ourselves." "Good. Prepare the maneuvers. We strike only when it gives us maximum advantage. Far below, on the colony, Ilara, Vance, and Milo hurried civilians into safer areas. The settlers had never witnessed anything like this. Scouts of the Zarathi descending from the sky, their armor glinting in harsh lights, weapons ready to fire. Fear was palpable, but hope had begun to stir. Ilara's signal had been answered, though no one yet knew the source. "Do you really think they'll come?" Milo whispered. "They have to," Ilara replied. Her voice was steady, though her heart raced. "Terrans never ignore a call for help, you'll see." The patrol drones moved closer to the surface, scanning systematically. One of them detected irregular readings, small disturbances in the asteroid field near the colony. A squadron veered, off to investigate, unaware that the Ardent lay hidden, its sensors tracking every movement. "Captain," Mara said, "they've taken the bait. We have them in position. Shall we engage?" Creel studied the display. "Not yet. Wait until they are fully committed. Let them think they have the upper hand. Then we act." The Ardent's stealth hull shimmered faintly, blending with the void of space. From the outside it was invisible, yet every system aboard was ready. Weapons were powered, shields reinforced, and communications encrypted. The Terrans understood that cleverness could defeat brute strength. They would not underestimate the Zarathi, but they would not be intimidated either. The first clash began with small strikes. The Terran crew manipulated space debris and the asteroid field to create illusions of phantom ships. Zarathi sensors, highly efficient but rigid, interpreted these signals as real threats. Confused, the scouts adjusted their course, unknowingly, moving into calculated traps. Ilara's scanner flickered. She could see only faint energy readings, but she sensed the change. "Something's happening. They're blind," she murmured. Milo squinted at the console. "Are they fighting each other?" "Yes," Ilara said, a small smile forming. "The humans are here. I can feel it." In the void above Arden 4, the Ardent moved with deadly grace. Its plasma cannons targeted the isolated scouts, firing precise bursts that disabled engines and communication arrays without destroying the vessels completely. Each shot was calculated to instill confusion and fear. The Zarathi were strong, but Terran strategy exploited every weakness. "Target Squadron 3, Creel ordered. Engage with focused fire. Disable, don't destroy. We want them alive to witness their failure." The bridge was tense. Sensors displayed the damaged, scouts drifting, engines sparking, unable to respond. The remaining ships began to hesitate, unsure of what had occurred. The Ardent remained hidden, controlling the battlefield without ever revealing its full might. Back on the colony, civilians felt a strange shift. The oppressive presence of the Zarathi seemed less absolute, almost uncertain. Ilara guided them toward shelters, explaining what she could. "Stay calm," she urged. "Help is here. The Terrans know what to do." The Zarathi commander aboard the main patrol ship was frustrated. He had never encountered such tactics. "What is this?" he growled. "The humans cannot be here. They should not exist." His subordinates tried to reassure him, but the sight of crippled scouts returning empty-handed only heightened his fear. Captain Creel monitored their reactions silently. "Mara," he said, "they're panicking. Prepare the next phase. We need to force a retreat, but without overexposing the Ardent." Mara nodded. "Course plotted. The asteroid cluster will funnel them right into the trap. They won't see us until it's too late." As the Zarathi moved into the trap, the Ardent fired again, this time targeting communication relays and energy conduits. Explosions lit the void, reflected faintly on the surface of Arden IV. The patrol ships were forced to scatter, struggling to maintain formation. One ship collided with a drifting asteroid, its hull breached. Another lost power in its primary engine. Ilara watched from the observation deck, awe and relief flooding her. "They're retreating," she whispered. Milo stared, unable to speak. Even the most hardened workers could feel the sudden shift in power. Humans, once thought weak and insignificant, had struck fear into the hearts of the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The Terran Battleship did not pursue recklessly. Creel knew the importance of patience. "Let them regroup," he said. "We fight smart, not fast. The goal is control of the battlefield, not reckless destruction." For the Zarathi, it was a lesson they had not anticipated. They had always relied on size, strength, and terror to dominate. A single Terran ship had challenged them and survived. Worse, it had outmaneuvered them, striking when they least expected. Fear began to creep into their ranks, subtle but undeniable. On Ardenth IV, a small group of colonists gathered secretly to watch the skies. They saw the shadows of battle among the stars, the flashes of energy weapons, and the sudden movements of unknown ships. Whispers spread. "The humans are here," they said. "We are not alone anymore." Alara guided the last of the civilians into underground shelters, then returned to the main control station. Her eyes scanned the displays, following every energy pulse and sensor reading. She could feel the tension in space, the battle unfolding above. Her role was small, but important. Every piece of information she fed to the Ardent could save lives. Suddenly, a transmission flickered through, brief, fragmented, but unmistakable. The Ardent had begun direct communication. "Stand down. Terrans are here to assist. Avoid unnecessary conflict." The Zarathi commander recoiled. Communication from humans was unexpected. Their arrogance had never allowed for negotiation. But the Terrans were not like others. They combined power with intelligence and strategy, and now they had demonstrated both. Captain Creel's calm voice echoed through the Ardent's bridge. "This is our moment. We have shown them we exist, that we are willing to act. We do not underestimate them, but neither do we cower. Let them know the galaxy is not theirs to rule alone." The remaining Zarathi scouts, disoriented and frightened, began to retreat from the asteroid field. The Ardent tracked their movements carefully, ensuring no hidden reinforcements could strike without warning. The first engagement had ended, but it was only the beginning. On Arden IV, Alara allowed herself a brief sigh of relief. She knew the danger was far from over, but seeing the Terrans in action, witnessing the confidence and skill of a single battleship filled her with hope. Humanity, she realized, was capable of standing against the impossible. Milo approached her, awe in his eyes. I thought we were finished," he admitted. "How did they do that?" Alara shook her head, smiling faintly. "They fight with more than weapons. They fight with courage, strategies, and heart. That's why they can do what no one else can." As the night stretched over the red plains of Arden IV, distant lights flickered, signals of resistance, of courage, and of a power that refused to be silenced. The battle above had been won, but the war for the galaxy's freedom was only beginning. High above, the Ardent prepared for the next phase. Captain Creel studied the stars, his mind planning every move, every possible outcome. In the vast darkness of space, a single Terran ship had already shown that even the mightiest armies could be challenged. And somewhere deep within the Zarathi fleet, whispers spread of a new threat, one that did not rely on fear alone, one that could think, adapt, and fight in ways they had never imagined. The Terrans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Ardent drifted silently among the stars, its hull gleaming faintly under distant starlight. The first skirmish had ended, but Captain Jonas Creel knew the fight was far from over. The Zarathi Armada, though shaken, would not give up easily. Their pride and power demanded retaliation, and every movement the Terrans made would be watched and countered. "Captain," Lieutenant Marate said, fingers flying across the console, "our sensors are picking up activity from other systems. Nearby, signals of faint transmissions. Some of these worlds are clearly sending intelligence, possibly secretly. They want to assist, but fear retribution from the Zarathi." Creel nodded, thoughtful. "We cannot ignore them. Humanity did not rise alone, and we cannot fight alone. Prepare to establish secure channels with willing parties. Discretion is critical. We gain allies quietly but firmly." Far below, On the surface of Arden IV, Ilara Vance was still coordinating with the colony. She had become more than an engineer. She had become a symbol of hope. Civilians whispered about her bravery and the Terran ship above. Even Milo, who had been fearful at first, now stood with steady hands, assisting wherever he could. Ilara adjusted her communication arrays and sent updates to the Ardent. "Captain Creel," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "I've mapped the patrol routes and weak points in their scanning systems. If you plan an operation on a larger Zarathi stronghold, this data may be helpful." Creel's voice came over the secure channel. "Excellent work, Ilara. Your courage and intelligence are proving invaluable. Prepare for further instructions and remember, your safety is paramount." The crew of the Arden prepared for a covert mission. The target, a Zarathi command stronghold, in the nearby sector. If Creel could disable its communication and control systems, the morale of the Armada could be shattered, giving oppressed planets a chance to rise. "Lieutenant Mara, plan the insertion," Creel commanded. "We need a surgical strike, swift, precise, and undetectable until it is too late for them to respond." Mara's fingers flew over the display. "We'll approach under asteroid cover, deploy a small shuttle team, and use micro-drones to infiltrate the main control nodes. The rest of the Ardent remains cloaked, providing support if necessary. The key is surprise." Meanwhile, Ilara and a small group of volunteers prepared for the mission. They were civilians, not soldiers, yet their knowledge of local systems and ingenuity made them perfect candidates. Ilara's heart raced, but she steeled herself. Fear was natural, but courage meant acting despite it. The shuttle launched from the Ardent, carrying Ilara, Milo, and a specialized team of Terran technicians. The vessel glided silently through space, weaving between asteroid fields, avoiding Zarathi sensors. Every movement required precision. Every second counted. "Inside the shuttle," Milo whispered. "Ilara, are you sure about this? We're just civilians." Ilara glanced at him, her eyes determined. "We are not just civilians. We have knowledge, courage, and a chance to make a difference. That is more than many soldiers can claim. Trust in what we can do." As they approached the stronghold, the massive Zarathi fortress loomed ahead, a dark, angular structure bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Its sheer size was intimidating, but the Terran team remained focused. Mara's voice came through the secure comm. "You're approaching the first perimeter. Stay on the shadows. Avoid detection at all costs." The shuttle slipped past the outer defenses, moving like a shadow. Micro-drones deployed from the hull, infiltrating ventilation shafts and sensor conduits. Ilara guided them, her fingers dancing over the console. "This is incredible," she whispered. "We're inside their system, and they don't even know it." Suddenly, a warning light flashed. A minor patrol drone had detected movement. Milo's eyes widened. "We're caught." Ilara remained calm. "No, we're not. Reroute the drones. Use the side channels. Keep moving. They'll think it's a malfunction." The team navigated the maze of corridors and conduits, avoiding patrols and automated defenses. Every step brought them closer to the core control room, where communication and command nodes pulsed with energy. Finally, they reached the heart of the stronghold. Ilara's team deployed the hacking interface, linking their systems to the Zarathi network. Streams of data flowed across their screens, encrypted codes, patrol schedules, and system logs. Ilara worked quickly, her mind a blur of calculations and commands. "This is it," she murmured. "If we can disrupt their communications, their fleet will be blind for hours. We can give the colonies a fighting chance." As she worked, Milo monitored the corridors. "Patrol approaching, 5 minutes." Ilara's hands flew across the interface. "Almost there. Just a few more sequences. And done." A pulse of interference spread across the stronghold's network. Lights flickered, alarms stuttered, and the Zarathi guards froze, unable to respond effectively. Back on the Ardent, Captain Creel observed the results. "Well done," he said, pride in his voice. "The signal disruption is working. Enemy communications are down. Now retreat. Carefully, we don't want unnecessary casualties. The shuttle team retraced their path through the shadows, returning to the Ardent without detection. The fortress remained operational in outward appearance, but internally, confusion reigned. Commanders barked orders that never reached their ships. Patrols faltered. The Terran intervention had struck at the core of Zarathi control. On Ardent IV, news spread quickly. Colonists whispered in astonishment. Humans had infiltrated a Zarathi stronghold and emerged unscathed. Courage and ingenuity, not sheer force, had triumphed. Hope bloomed across the colony like a rising sun. Ilara and Milo returned to the Ardent's shuttle bay, exhausted but triumphant. Creel greeted them with calm respect. "You've done something remarkable," he said. "Not just for this colony, but for every world under Zarathi rule. Your bravery will inspire others. This is how empires fall, not through sheer violence, but through courage and clever action." Ilara smiled faintly, her fatigue showing, but pride shining in her eyes. "We just did what we had to. Anyone else would have acted the same way." Creel shook his head. "No. Many would have fled in fear. Few would act with such precision, intelligence, and bravery. Humans have a spirit others often underestimate. That is why we are here. That is why we can make a difference." As the Ardent prepared to leave the sector, Creel reviewed the intelligence gathered from other systems. Several oppressed races had sent subtle signals of cooperation. Slowly, unlikely alliances were forming. Beings once silenced by the Zarathi were beginning to speak. They shared data, resources, and support with the Terrans, quietly, without attracting attention. "Captain," Mara said, "these alliances could be the turning point. The colonies may start resisting in small ways. If we coordinate with them carefully, we can disrupt the Armada across multiple sectors." Creel's eyes narrowed, focused and determined. "Exactly. The Zarathi rely on fear, control, and obedience. If we give hope, teach coordination, and demonstrate that resistance works, their empire will begin to crumble from within. This is just the beginning. Humanity's role is to show that no force is invincible." Back on the Ardent's observation deck, Ilara looked out at the stars. She thought of the colonies, the hidden allies, and the Zarathi stronghold now in disarray. Fear had been the weapon of the oppressors, but courage had proven stronger. Milo stood beside her, still in awe. "I never thought we could do something like this," he admitted. Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Courage is not about strength. It's about standing up when the odds are against you. That's what we did. That's what humans do. That's what Terrans do." Above, the Ardent glided through space like a guardian in the void, unseen yet ever watchful. The first act of rebellion had begun, small but decisive, across the galaxy. Whispers spread of humans who dared to act where others trembled, of a battleship that struck fear into the mightiest fleet, and of individuals who chose bravery over submission. The Zarathi, once untouchable, were learning that their empire could be challenged, not by overwhelming force but by determination, cleverness, and unity. And as the Ardent prepared for its next mission, Captain Creel knew that the galaxy was changing. Every victory, no matter how small, inspired hope. Every act of courage spread like a ripple. And soon, the shadows of invincibility that the Zarathi had cast over countless worlds would begin to fade. For the first time in many cycles, the oppressed were beginning to believe in the impossible. The Terrans had shown them the path, and the galaxy would never forget it. The stars above Ardent IV twinkled as usual, but the calm of space had been broken. The Zarathi Armada, enraged by the recent sabotage of their command stronghold, was massing for retaliation. Entire fleets moved in tight formation, black ships bristling with weapons and engines glowing ominously. Their pride demanded punishment, and they would strike with overwhelming force. On the Ardent, Captain Jonas Creel watched the approaching fleet through sensors, calm yet focused. The Terran Battleship was vastly outnumbered, but Creel had never relied on numbers alone. Every Terran ship, every Terran mind, was trained to use intelligence, strategy, and adaptability to overcome superior forces. Lieutenant Mara, Creel said, voice steady. Prepare the Ardent for combat. Shields to maximum. Weapons armed. We will not flee, but we will not fight blindly. Our goal is control, not sacrifice. Mara nodded, her hands moving quickly over the console. Sir, the fleet is enormous. They've deployed over 30 warships and hundreds of patrol drones. Our sensors suggest they intend a full blockade of Arden IV. Creel's eyes narrowed. They rely on fear. Let's give them something new to fear. Human ingenuity. Below, on the colony, panic spread. Residents hurried to shelters as alarms blared, warning of the incoming fleet. Ilara Vance stood at the main observation deck, her eyes fixed on the screens. She could see the immense ships of the Armada, their black hulls gleaming, their engines pulsing like living hearts of fire. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but she reminded herself of what the Terrans had already accomplished. One ship had changed everything. One battleship had struck where others had failed. They'll try to crush us, Milo said, voice trembling. Can they really be stopped? Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder. Yes, she said firmly. If we think, if we plan, if we work together. That's how they were stopped before. That's how they can be stopped again. On the Ardent, preparations were complete. Drones were deployed to create decoys. Mines were positioned strategically around asteroid belts, and long-range scanners mapped every possible weak point in the approaching fleet. The Terrans were ready, not with numbers but with knowledge and ingenuity. As the Zarathi ships closed in, they found themselves disrupted. Sensor arrays failed unpredictably, engines misfired near asteroid belts, and several patrol ships collided, with hidden debris fields. Captain Creel's strategies turned the terrain of space into a weapon. Lieutenant Mara, he said, voice calm amid the tension. Initiate the diversion. Force them to split their formation. Keep our fleet in the shadows, Mara complied. Microdrones created holographic projections of the Ardent, tricking the enemy into attacking phantoms. Several Zarathi ships fired at empty space, wasting energy and creating confusion. The Armada, so accustomed to fear controlling their victims, found themselves uncertain and reactive. Meanwhile, Ilara used her technical skills to aid the Ardent from the colony's communication hub. She had created a device capable of emitting a temporary pulse to scramble the Zarathi's navigation systems. Carefully, she activated it, and in the blink of an eye, several warships spun out of formation, their engines failing to respond correctly. Captain, Creel, the interference is working, Mara said, relief in her voice. They can't move in sync. Creel's eyes gleamed. Good. Now let's take control. The Ardent moved swiftly, striking with precision. Plasma cannons disabled key engines on the largest warships, targeting the command ships first. Each shot was calculated, aimed not to destroy entirely, but to weaken and confuse. The Zarathi, masters of intimidation and overwhelming force, now struggled to respond effectively. On Arden IV, civilians watched the battle unfold through observation screens. Fear had not vanished, but awe replaced some of it. The impossible was happening. One Terran ship, a single battleship, was holding the line against an entire armada. Colonists whispered to each other, hope blooming quietly. Perhaps the humans could win. Perhaps the Zarathi were not invincible. Inside the Ardent, Captain Creel directed maneuvers with calm authority. Focus on the weak points. Exploit every opening. Remember, this battle is not about destruction. It's about strategy and morale. If they see weakness, fear will return to them. If they see strength, they may hesitate. That hesitation is our advantage. As predicted, the Zarathi began to falter. Their ships moved more cautiously, unsure where the next attack would come from. Internal communication breakdowns caused confusion, and smaller units began acting independently, attempting to salvage their honor. Creel observed this, nodding with approval. Ilara, he said over secure channel. Your interference device is brilliant. Keep it active, but conserve energy for critical moments. We need every advantage. Ilara's hands moved quickly, monitoring outputs and adjusting settings. Understood, Captain. They won't know what hit them. The battle reached a critical point when the Zarathi attempted a concentrated strike on the colony itself. Energy. Beams cut through space, destroying mining towers and scattering debris. Civilians screamed, running to shelters, but the Ardent's careful maneuvers shielded the colony. Using asteroid fields as cover, plasma beams intercepted attacks while decoy projections confused the enemy's targeting systems. Milo grabbed Ilara's arm, eyes wide. "We're going to survive this, right?" Ilara nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "Yes, we've held them off before and we'll do it again. Trust the Terrans." With expert precision, the Ardent struck the command ships again, crippling engines and disrupting communication relays. A wave of panic spread through the Armada. Without coordination, their formation collapsed. Smaller patrol ships collided, misfired, and retreated in confusion. The mighty fleet thought unstoppable had been fractured by intelligence, strategy, and courage. Captain Creel knew this was their moment. Prepare for final sweep. We are not pursuing indiscriminately. We strike decisively, disable, and leave them no chance to regroup. Victory must be complete but calculated. Mara executed the command flawlessly. Plasma fire struck key systems on the remaining active ships. Engines failed, weapon systems went offline, and command protocols were disrupted entirely. The Zarathi, who had once ruled with fear and intimidation, found themselves unable to act effectively. On the surface, cheers erupted from hidden observation points. Colonists whispered wide-eyed at what they had witnessed. The mighty Zarathi fleet had been defeated, not through sheer numbers but through courage, unity, and ingenuity. For the first time, the oppressed dared to believe that freedom was possible. Ilara allowed herself a brief sigh of relief. She looked at Milo, who grinned despite exhaustion. "We actually did it," he said softly. "Yes," she replied, smiling. "We made them falter. We've shown them that fear isn't everything. Courage, thinking, and teamwork can overcome even the strongest force." Captain Creel addressed his crew over comms. "This victory is more than tactical. It is a message. Oppression cannot stand against those who refuse to be cowed. Humanity has shown that strategy, intelligence, and bravery matter as much as any weapon. Today we set the tone for the galaxy." In the shadows, other oppressed worlds had been watching. News of the Terran victory spread quickly through hidden channels. Resistance movements, previously cautious and fearful, began to mobilize. Communication networks sabotaged by Terran strategy allowed messages of hope and coordination to flow. Slowly, the galaxy's balance of power was shifting. Back on the Ardent, Captain Creel observed the retreating Zarathi fleet. "They will regroup," he said, "but their confidence has been shaken. This is only the beginning. We must continue to protect those who cannot fight for themselves and inspire hope across the systems. One battle does not win a war, but it starts a chain reaction." Ilara looked out at the stars, reflecting on what they had accomplished. She thought of the colonies, the hidden allies, and the Terran team that had made this victory possible. Courage, intelligence, and unity had turned the tide. And as the Ardent prepared for its next mission, she knew that the galaxy's future was no longer certain for the Zarathi, but full of possibilities for those willing to stand against tyranny. Milo placed a hand on her shoulder, still in awe. "Do you think we can really change things?" Ilara smiled, her eyes determined. "Yes. One victory inspires another. One act of courage sparks hope. Today we've begun a chain that no empire can fully control. The galaxy is waking up." High above, the Ardent glided through space, silent but powerful, a symbol of human determination and skill. The Terrans had turned the first tide, but many battles lay ahead. Still, one truth was clear. No matter the might of an empire, courage and ingenuity could challenge the strongest forces. For the first time in cycles, the oppressed dared to dream, and the Terrans had shown them the way. The stars above Arden IV glimmered quietly, but the galaxy itself had begun to stir. The Zarathi Armada, once feared as unstoppable, had retreated, their pride wounded, and their fleet fractured. Rumors of their defeat had spread across several sectors. carried secretly by those who had once trembled in fear. On the surface of Arden IV, the colonies were alive with cautious celebration. People emerged from shelters, repairing damaged buildings and helping the injured. They moved with hope now, not just fear, the courage of a single Terran battleship, the Ardent, and the bravery of ordinary individuals like Alara Vance had shown them that resistance was possible. Alara stood atop a ridge overlooking the colony, her eyes on the stars. Milo was beside her, carrying a small crate of supplies for reconstruction. The aftermath of the battle left the colony battered but not broken, and though the Zarathi would return eventually, the human spirit had already struck the first blow. "They won't forget what we've done," Milo said softly. "The Zarathi, I mean, they think they're invincible." Alara smiled faintly. "No empire is invincible, Milo. Not when people refuse to bow, not when courage and intelligence guide action. Today we've started something much bigger than ourselves." Far above, the Ardent hovered silently, its sensors scanning the retreating fleets and the surrounding sectors. Captain Jonas Creel stood on the bridge, surveying the calm after the storm. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Strategy, foresight, and vigilance would be required to keep the galaxy safe and to support the oppressed worlds that were now rising in hope. "Captain," Lieutenant Marate said, "reports from nearby colonies indicate that uprisings are already beginning. Small fleets are organizing and communications show coordinated resistance. The Terran presence inspired confidence." Creel nodded, a sense of quiet pride in his expression. "Excellent. That was always the goal. We do not simply defeat an enemy, we inspire others to stand with us. That is the true power of courage." Below, Alara coordinated repairs at the communication hub. Every message she sent to the Ardent reinforced networks among the colonies, allowing hidden communities to communicate safely and to plan resistance against future Zarathi incursions. The galaxy was waking up, and humans were at the center of the change. A small comm alert flashed on her console. It was Captain Creel. "Alara," he said, voice calm and reassuring. "You have done more than assist. You have proven that ordinary people, with courage and skill, can achieve extraordinary results. Your actions have helped change the galaxy." Alara's chest swelled with pride, but she shook her head. "I only did what needed to be done. Anyone in my place would have tried." Creel smiled faintly. "Not everyone has your determination and presence of mind. That is what makes the difference. Remember, it is not only strength that matters, but will, intelligence, and courage." On the Ardent, the crew maintained their vigilance, ensuring that no stragglers from the Zarathi Armada could regroup and attack. Mara ran simulations projecting possible enemy maneuvers. "Captain, if the Zarathi attempt to rebuild their fleet quickly, we may face renewed aggression within cycles." Creel's eyes were steady. "Then we must continue to support these colonies, to protect and guide them. Humans are not just fighters. They are leaders, teachers, and symbols of hope. That is our advantage, and we must use it wisely." Back on Arden IV, a ceremony was being prepared to honor those who had contributed to the resistance. Citizens gathered in small groups, placing flowers and markers in memory of the lives lost. And yet among the grief, there was celebration. Humanity had shown that even against a mighty empire, action and courage could create change. Alara and Milo were invited to attend the ceremony. As they walked through the crowd, people whispered their gratitude. Children looked at Alara with wide eyes, inspired by her bravery and resourcefulness. She felt the weight of responsibility, but also the warmth of hope spreading across the colony. Captain Creel addressed the colony through secure transmission, his voice echoing with calm authority. "People of Arden IV, and all free worlds watching, know this. No empire, no matter how mighty, can suppress those who refuse to be cowed. Courage, unity, and ingenuity can turn the tides of any battle. You have seen it today. You have witnessed that even in the darkest times, hope can guide action." A cheer rose from the colony, loud and clear, a sound that seemed to echo across the stars. The oppressed were beginning to understand that fear was not absolute, that courage could topple what had seemed unshakable. In the following cycles, the Terran Federation worked to establish safe zones across liberated sectors. They provided resources, training, and guidance to colonies wishing to defend themselves. Humans were not conquerors, they were protectors and liberators. Their example encouraged alien races who had been silent under Zarathi rule to act, to communicate, and to resist. Ilara spent her days coordinating with other colonies, guiding engineers and volunteers to strengthen defenses and rebuild infrastructure. She became a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even ordinary individuals could make a difference when they acted with intelligence and courage. Milo, too, found his purpose. He trained new volunteers in communication systems and engineering, helping spread skills that would ensure colonies could protect themselves. Together, they embodied the spirit of cooperation and hope that the Terrans had brought to the galaxy. Above the colonies, the Ardent remained a guardian presence, its systems monitoring sectors and its crew ready to respond to any new threat. Captain Creel, standing at the observation deck, watched the stars with thoughtful eyes. "The galaxy is changing," he said quietly. "The Zarathi have learned they are not invincible. Others have learned that courage can triumph over fear. This is only the beginning. Humanity's role is to ensure that light reaches even the darkest corners." The Ardent prepared to move to the next sector, ready to assist other colonies, other oppressed worlds. The galaxy was no longer silent under fear. Humanity had planted seeds of freedom, and those seeds were beginning to grow. Ilara watched the battleship leave from the surface, her heart filled with pride and hope. "They've done it," she said softly to Milo. "They've changed everything." Milo nodded, eyes on the retreating silhouette of the Ardent. "Yes, and we'll keep it going. Whatever comes next, we'll be ready." The Terrans had shown the galaxy that even the most feared force could be challenged. They had proven that intelligence, courage, and unity could overcome sheer power. And most importantly, they had given the oppressed hope. Across countless systems, whispers of rebellion began to spread. Small fleets, guided by Terran strategy, started to resist. Hidden networks of communication allowed colonists to organize and protect themselves. The Zarathi, once supreme, found that fear no longer held the galaxy in their grasp. On Arden IV, the ceremony concluded. Citizens returned to their homes, hearts lighter than they had been in decades. Ilara and Milo stood side by side, looking at the horizon. The red plains of the planet seemed brighter now, bathed in the quiet glow of dawn. "Do you think it will last?" Milo asked. Ilara smiled. "It has to. Courage once seen cannot be forgotten. Hope once felt cannot be erased. The Terrans have shown the way and will make sure it spreads." Above, the Ardent disappeared into the star-strewn void, a single battleship leaving a lasting legacy. Its actions had proven that no empire, however mighty, could suppress those who refused to bow. Its presence would be remembered, its victories celebrated, and its courage emulated. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the retreating Zarathi armada, whispers of fear and doubt began to spread. The galaxy's most feared warriors realized too late that humanity had arrived, and that once humanity acted, none would dare suppress the freedom of others so easily again. The battle was won. The war for hearts and hope had begun, and the legend of the Ardent and its crew would inspire countless generations to come.